Special good morning to Grenada, the Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Good morning to one and all. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. I'm your host, GT. I'll be around with you until it's 10 a.m. Special good morning to the listeners. Those of you via Classic Radio, whether it's 105.5 or 105.9. Good morning to you, whatever part of the island you're listening. Also in our sister isles. Good morning those of you via GBN TV, whether it's Channel 7, Channel 11 or Channel 20. Good morning to you also. What about our social media platforms, whether it's the Facebook page or the YouTube channel? Good morning and welcome. I guess those of you via TV, you can see that I do have a guest in the studio with me this morning. I was just telling the officer that's Constable Troy Paul. Good morning to you, sir. How are you doing? And also we have with us this morning Ms. Mona Julian. She's with us this morning. And I want to welcome you both. And thanks for being on To The Point this morning. I was telling Constable Paul a while ago, he's becoming a regular here on To The Point. Welcome to both of you. Welcome to The Point this morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure.
All right. So we have Ms. Mona Julian. She's actually the communication manager of the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority. And we have Constable Troy Paul, who's from the traffic department representing the RGPF this morning. Let's get into the meat of the conversation this morning. A few weeks ago, I entertained the minister from the Ministry of MIT, and that was followed by to get himself together with a representative from the Ministry of Health. I like to just simply say Mr. Ram because of the length of his name. I usually just say Mr. Ram. We also had a representative from, of course, Physical Planning, together with the Permanent Secretary. And this morning I have the Solid Waste Management Authority and the Royal Grenada Police Force Department, the Traffic Department. And our main focus is of course, what's been taking place lately with works that have been put on by the Ministry of MIT. And in commencement with the direct vehicles removal and so forth. So now this morning, we're going to hear how the Solid Waste Management Authority fits into this whole plan. In terms of that cleanup, the police fits in also. So we're going to kick it off this morning with Ms. Julian, as they say, ladies first. And tell me, give us an overview of the transformation project from the Solid Waste Management Authority point of view. Give us a big overview for that.
Okay. Once again, good morning, and I'd like to take the opportunity at this time to extend deepest sympathy to you all on the passing of Mrs. Campbell from our management.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Right, so getting into the issue of the derelicts. We know we have had quite a lot of challenges as relates to the presence of derelicts on our roadsides, the public health issues, the transport issues, and so this morning we are here collaborating with the police to present these challenges that we have been confronting for quite a number of years and the approaches that we are taking in terms of collaborating to address the whole issue of the derelict removal. You mentioned prior to asking me the question, a number of stakeholders who were a part of this discussion previously. And this brings to the fore the whole issue of the collaborative approach which was necessary to effect this derelict vehicle removal program. So there are quite a number of institutions that came together to implement this project of addressing the issue of derelicts in public places and also in private places. I think Mr. Ram would have expounded on that one. In terms of the role of the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority, we are collaborating at this time with the police in terms of effecting that part of the Waste Management Act, and that is the actual removal of derelicts. So after the police and the Ministry of Health would have done their role in terms of the tagging and so on, and the officer would speak to that, it is then our responsibility to take it from the process of removal once that the 7-day time frame has elapsed in terms of the issuing of notices on the derelicts. So we are responsible now at that stage that the item becomes solid waste for the removal of the items from where they are located, from where they have been tagged, and take it to a processing site, right? So we are currently operating, I would say, one processing site, and this is where the vehicles are taken. They are broken down. Some are stored based on their current state, and those that have reached an advanced stage of, dilapidated condition. These are the ones that are being broken down and made into the blocks. So they're taken to another station, for making into the metal cubes. And in order to complete the process, they are being sold to certified metal traders and shipped off island for the purposes of recycling.
All right. Now, the general public listening now and then, they may ask a question. The definition of a derelict from a solid waste management authority point of view.
Okay, so based on the Waste Management Act, we have decided as stakeholders, there are several definitions for derelict vehicles, right? So based on our decision to use the Waste Management Act for effecting the derelict vehicle project, we have decided to use the Waste Management Act. And based on the Waste Management Act, the definition for derelict is any abandoned or discarded vehicle or any vehicle that is left in a public place that has reached a state of decomposition that it cannot be safely used for public transportation is considered a derelict vehicle. Basically, that is the definition that we are using for this purposes.
Okay. So once your vehicle is there, so is there a time factor? I've been looking at a vehicle in a particular area, let's say it's been there a year, 2 years. It started to decompose, if you want to put it in that particular way, or rot as we would say in local terms. No, that qualifies for that. And then the process now of the tagging, and then the solid waste management authority comes in. After a time factor has been allotted to the owner, give them that time to remove it, and then that's where you're coming, and then you get to the disposal of that vehicle,
Yes. So that's a process, because according to the Waste Management Act, again, there is a section that deals with who is authorized to do what, right? So under that section of the Act, any police officer, right, or any environmental health officer is qualified as the authorized officer for effecting the law in this, and this is where officer comes in here.
So let's go to officer this morning, Constable Paul, this morning. Now, the derelict tagging process based on the Road Traffic Act. Tell us about that.
Repeat the question again.
I was asking, the derelict tagging, from the process based on the Road Traffic Act. Tell us about that.
Yes. So as Miss Julian, right? Yes, she had explained that there's a process by which the vehicle will be tagged after the definition given in relation to what is considered to be a derelict. So the vehicle will be tagged, and there's a 7-day elapsed time where that a notice that will be served to the owner of that vehicle. However, if they fail to remove the vehicle within that time, then therefore the ministry and all the stakeholders comes in now where they're with the process of removing that vehicle from the position that it is. And the police comes in now, and they remove that vehicle, and it's taken to the site where, and depending on the condition is, and as Miss Julian have explained, then those processes will be taking place after the removal. But the police responsibility in all of this is basically in relation to the removal of the vehicle from the position that it is in. And in order for it to, in relation to removal of that vehicle, because remember, once it is derelict or considered to be derelict, therefore it is uninsured, unlicensed, and a whole lot of process. Sometimes it's left in dangerous positions and so forth. And the police have certain powers under Section 30 of the Road Traffic Act, where if vehicles in that condition and state, the police automatically have that powers to remove that vehicle and tow it away.
Right.
So it ties in relation to the solid waste management, where it would be an easier process and a smoother transition where that vehicle will be easily removed. And once it is already tagged, it makes the process a lot easier for the Royal Grenada Police Force.
All right. No, let's just. I just want to ask this question. Just in as we enter that particular way of questioning right now. Owner sees his vehicle tagged. Who do that individual come to? If, let's say, he does not want his vehicle to be removed, or he probably wants to relocate it for some reason or the other, who does that individual goes to?
Well, the process of the vehicle being tagged in the first place is to tell you that you need to remove it from where it is. If you have use for it, or if you see that it's necessary, you remove it from where it is.
So they have the option of moving it themselves.
Yes.
You understand? Okay, that's honestly. You have the option of removing it yourself
so that
before the solid waste management or the police comes to have that removed.
Yeah, that's before the 7-day period.
Before the 7 days.
Yeah.
So they give you that 7-day window that is open is for you to have your vehicle removed. And if you don't between that time, then you will take it upon yourselves to have it removed and put it in whatever location you have to put it in.
Yes, and if the owner wants that vehicle back, they will have to pay a cost.
Okay. Now let's go to Miss Julian once again. Now the process of reporting derelict vehicles. Tell us the derelict, the hotline and so forth numbers that folks have to call. Give us some information on that.
Okay, so the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority, we have agreed to house the office for the derelict vehicle project within our establishment, that is at the Frequency headquarters. So there are two things you can do. You can either call in, right? There is a hotline 439-2019, right, and report the presence of a derelict in your community. Right, you need to give proper details as to if you have information on the owner and all of that. Even persons who have on their properties, right, and the vehicles have been abandoned on the properties can call in, that it is causing a problem for them, because we do have issues of illegal dumping in quite a number of locations. You see, for example, the police would give you quite a lot of issues where a vehicle that has been abandoned for quite some time in a location is causing narrowing of the road, rendering the road impassable to especially emergency vehicles and so on, the ambulance, the fire service, and all of that. These things would qualify for reporting, right? Okay. So you can either call, right, give us all the details, location, and all of that. And if you can do GPS, right, you send it to us, and we have a system where it is recorded. All right. Right? So we record the information, and then we address it based on the magnitude of the challenge. Right? So it's either we come immediately, right? We send somebody we report it to the police or report it to the Ministry of Health, as they are the authorized officers under this. But we have a database, and it is important that people call in and register the information and not wait till you see the team out in the field working and, come to, because we need to have information as to relates to where these things are located, the magnitude of the work that we're coming to address in a specific community. For example, there are schedules that are set up for when the officers are going out. And so from our end, at the communications unit within the authority, we also broadcast that information as to when the tagging teams are going out. Okay. But we would not broadcast when the teams are going out to collect. Okay. Right?
I wanted to ask this also as you're along that line. You mentioned the reporting. So if an individual has a vehicle that he owns, he or her owns, and they want to have it removed, they could also contact the Solid Waste Management Authority.
Yes, they can contact us, yes. And if they have the resources to bring it themselves, we would allow them to bring it to the site also.
And it's also left up to folks in the community. If they notice derelict vehicles there, they could also report it.
Yes.
But would there be a process where the owners of these vehicles will be contacted? Let's say for some reason the authority may not have known there's a derelict vehicle in a particular area, and someone reports, well, I know we have a number of vehicles here. Is there an option where the owner is contacted and then informed that, we will be able to have to tag your vehicle to have it removed? There's a process of that?
No, we just come on the scene and along with the police.
Once it's been reported that there's a
once it's reported, they would come on the scenes and have it tagged and all of that.
Okay, great. Now, the process for recovery, reclaiming of vehicles when it's been moved to the location, how does that process roll out from the Solid Waste Management Authority?
Okay, so once the vehicle is within our premises, that is on the processing site, storage site, we give the owners of the vehicles a 7-day period again, within which they can come to claim the vehicles. Now, you do not come to the site, you do not come to Solid Waste Authority, but you go to the Ministry of Health, Environmental Health Department, and you report that, or you tell them that your vehicle was taken up, you did not have the time to process, but this can be avoided even before it gets to the site, in that you observe that the vehicle was tagged, right, and you start the process within the 7-day period that it is still on your in the public space or whatever it is, or even on your public property, because even if it's on your public property, we will also come in and tag if it is affecting your neighbors and so on, right? So you can start the process then by reporting to the Ministry of Health, Environmental Health Department, right? And you start the process, then it would not be taken up based on the reasons that you give. Now, after it would have passed the 7-day period, it's on our property, you must also go to the Environmental Health Department to tell them that you would like to have your vehicle collected, retrieved. Now, the Ministry of Health, Environmental Health Department would come to inspect the property on which you plan to put your vehicle, because you cannot shift the problem from one area to the next, right? This is critical. So the Environmental Health Department will come onto your property, inspect to ensure that it is not presenting a public health issue, it's not going to be obstructing traffic and all of that. And they would issue you with a certificate which says, we have inspected this person's property, vehicle, the description of the vehicle is authorized by the authorized officer, which is the Ministry of Health, to be released from the pound wherever it's held.
All right.
Then you would have to come in now to the authority with this, pay your $500, and then you're allowed to take your vehicle. You are required to take the vehicle, provided the record service or whatever it is. We
So
don't
it's not,
return your vehicles.
you would not be able to return it.
No, we don't return
And
your
you said
vehicle.
there's a 7 days to claim after it's been
On the site, yes, on our site,
Yeah, 7 days
yes.
to do that. But after that 7 days passes, then you want to reclaim. That's where the cost comes in, or after before or during the process of during the 7-day period. What happens after the 7-day period?
Okay, so we're talking about 14 days in total, right?
Yeah, let's say
7 days,
for 7
the next 7 days.
days.
Right, so the last 7 days, this is where the $500 comes in,
Okay,
right?
so what happened after that?
It could be yours if you didn't meet the requirements for removal, then it stays with us.
What if an
and we
individual
process,
decides he
we
doesn't
start
want to claim? No, what does the authority do with it?
Right, so then it's our property, so we have a right to have it dismantled, have all the oils removed and, broken down into a shell. Then it is taken to our facility at Queen's Park for baling.
Okay, okay, great. We due for a break. Let's take that break, folks. We're coming right back. It's to the point this morning here on the Classic Radio. We're coming right back. Stay with us, folks.
Do you know, when you play the games of the National Lotteries Authority, you are supporting sports, culture, and nation building in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique?
Hi, I am Junior Murray, cricket coach, sports enthusiast, and a former West Indies cricketer. I endorse the games of the NLA 100%. For the past 40 years, the NLA has been funding many sporting activities, including competition for schools and clubs, and for athletes to participate in overseas tournaments such as the Carifta Games and the regional cricket tournaments. Additionally, they made it possible for you, the public, to view local, regional, and international tournaments from the comfort of your homes. For those reasons, I play the game of the NLA. Even if I do not win, I know Grenada always wins.
Yes, when you play all the games, the NLA in turn supports sports, culture, and nation-building activities throughout the Tri-Island state.
No, girl, that was yesterday. I can't believe all they said that. She didn't.
Mom, can you help me, please? I'm having some trouble understanding.
No, you serious?
Mom, can you help me, please?
So y'all sit down and say that? Okay then, bye. Here. Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's ensure that you're well prepared for this exam.
Parents, you have a crucial role to play in helping to prepare your children for the CPEA exams. Help them or seek additional help so that they can revise the concepts they learn at school and give them a better chance to be successful and move on to the next phase of their lives. A message from the National Parenting Program, Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs.
Let's say welcome back to our listeners and viewers. Welcome back to The Point this morning here on Classic Radio and GVN TV. With me this morning have Ms. Mona Julian, and we have Constable Troy Paul from the RGPF. I want to continue on this vein of the conversation. I want to start about this segment with speaking to Constable Paul. Now, what does the powers of the RGF fits in when it comes to towing away, broken down vehicles and derelicts per se? We focusing a lot on the derelicts.
Yes.
But then you're going to have maybe someone vehicle may have broken down for a period of time. It's parked by the road for whatever reason. You could have a part, since you are part, they can't afford to get or whatever, and it's there. Where does the powers of the police fit into this?
Yes. In relation to Section 30 of the Road Traffic Act, the Road Traffic Amendment Act 17 of 2010, continuous revised edition of the laws of Grenada, it gives the police the authority to tow away motor vehicle under the following circumstances. A motor vehicle on the road not in force of insurance here. Your vehicle does not have insurance. Secondly, your vehicle is not licensed or it's in a condition to cause danger to the road. For example, you leave your vehicle in a dangerous position. But basically, most of vehicles that are uninsured. And we know, speaking in context of derelict, because once it is in that state or condition, we definitely know that a vehicle is uninsured, because you wouldn't have an insured vehicle in such a condition that it is reached that state.
It become on-roadworthy.
Very well. And this under Section 30 gives the police the powers to remove that vehicle, especially in the case of insurance. And once the police comes across anyone, even if the vehicle is not derelict, but once the vehicle is uninsured, we can remove that vehicle or cause it to be removed once it's been driven and so forth. And makes it easier in relation to tying it into relation to a derelict now, that once the process of starting and we identify that vehicle to be a derelict and we know that it is uninsured, makes the process a lot easier. And then it's tagged the process the 7 days, because definitely we will look at it and because remember the team goes out to the field,
come up with an assessment,
and definitely they will have to assess it and whether or not it fits the description of a derelict. And therefore, once all these things are met, then the tagging process. So then the 7 day time is elapsed. Then therefore the relevant authorities, along with the RGPF, goes back to the field and remove that vehicle from where it is located, and takes it to the site where Miss Julian has explained.
I want to get into this. It's probably going to be off track a little bit, but the challenges that both the Solid Waste Management Authority and the police have in terms of derelict vehicles.
Yes, so there definitely the Royal Grenada Police Force and the Solid Waste Management and the entire team has faced challenges in the process of removing derelict vehicle, because as we said, there's a definition that fits what is considered to be derelict, and so at times persons may still want their property because they may not think that it fits or consider that they might have some kind of financial value to it still, and they may not agree with the Solid Waste Management and the entire team in relation to tagging or removing their vehicle. So there may be confrontations back and forth, and these are some of the challenges faced in the process of removing, because especially if it's on somebody's property, again, they may want to tend or oppose. You cannot enter my property, you cannot enter. But at the end of the day, the Solid Waste Management and the Royal Grenada Police Force has a mandate and a responsibility to remove. Thus the reason this law was made, so that you have that easy process and transition whereby you identify, you tag, and they have notices and so forth. So it all comes into the process, and then therefore makes the police being there in the whole tagging and removal makes it easier for the entire team to perform their duties and remove those vehicles that are considered to be derelict.
What kind of advice does the police would like to offer, especially for folks who wants to remove the tags and so forth from their vehicle? What kind of advice would anyone you want to chime in on that?
Okay, it is illegal to remove the tags. And we have had instances where when the team is back on the scene to remove the vehicle, the tag is removed. And not only that, within that 7 day period, the vehicle is also removed. But it is moved from the location where it presented a challenge to another location or even another community where it is presenting even a worse challenge. So these are some of the challenges as it relates to tagging, right? And within that 7-day period. Now, there are other issues. For example, as Officer mentioned, the confrontation, right? Especially with the team when they're now in the process of removal. And we would like those who have been so affected, if you still want your vehicle, to avoid the confrontation by making your interventions within that first 7-day period.
Okay.
Do not allow it to go beyond that first 7-day period when you now have to pay the $500 if you want to retrieve your vehicle for parts or whatever it is, right? So it would help to alleviate all of the confrontation, the challenges that we have. There are some communities where the residents, they are very satisfied with the approach. They pleased that it's being done for quite a number of reasons. Now, Officer mentioned the traffic issues and so on. You also have the public health issues,
yes,
right?
That's where the health of
right, you have rodent
yes,
infestation,
exactly.
Mosquito breeding, and all of that. Leaching of liquids into the drains and that sort of thing. So we would like our Grenadian population to establish a little bit more ownership for this project. It is not just about the members of the team that you mentioned before and we who are here, but for everyone. We all stand to benefit from this in quite a number of areas. Right. You don't know when your family is going to be affected by, let's say, a fire, right? And the fire service cannot reach to your home because of an abandoned vehicle, or the ambulance cannot get to your home because a vehicle is blocking the way. So it is for everyone. It is not for the Solid Waste Authority. Everybody stands to benefit from this, and we would encourage everyone to be supportive of the whole project, the whole process that is underway to, remove the challenges that we have off our plate, off the plate of everyone who is going to be affected, and of course get help to clean up our country, free up our
There's another concern. I want to know how the Solid Waste Management Authority fits into this in terms of the the roadside garage, the scrap metal, especially the Basel convention. I've heard how does the Solid Waste Management Authority fits in there?
Okay, so we've had Grenada signed on to the Basel Convention last year, which places us has placed us in a good position to trade in a number of waste types. So it would address the whole issue of the transboundary movement of trade. So we were blacklisted some time ago because we were trading through smaller countries and we did not sign on to the convention and all of that. So this helped to free us up, right, quite a lot, and allow us to trade. But we must follow quite a number of the protocols to ensure that we are doing things correctly, right? And it would help to address some of even the challenges that we had before with contaminated waste leaving the country and that sort of thing. So we have to do things in conformity to international standards now, which makes good for us and, of course, for the safety of all. And this helps in terms of addressing the challenge you mentioned, the whole issue of the roadside garages and stockpiling of things that have been there from the 1960s. Yes, because we're seeing things like Philips stove and this kind of a Kenson things and so on. You understand? So, storing up these things, we're not going to be using them again, right? So it would help us to help those who are challenged by the huge quantities of waste that they have on their compound, the garages that are spilling out onto the roadside, onto people's public and private properties and all that. We may have heard of issues in some parts in the south of the island that we're trying to address, with the support of the Ministry of Health, where things are getting out of hand in terms of the scrap metal trade, right? So we're trying to facilitate as many of the scrap metal dealers as possible through offering our baling services, and those that we have for ourselves, we sell them to the scrap metal dealers. So this would help to alleviate a lot of, as we mentioned, the issues with the garages. But we do hope that they would not wait on us to come to them, right? We're currently operating in the south of the island because we only have one depot, which is in Calais, right? We're looking for locations on the eastern side and the western side, which should make it easy for transportation. So people might be wondering, why is it we're not attacking this garage on the eastern side, St. Andrews, St. Patrick's, and so on, and we're concentrating on the south? It is because we are approaching institutions with this space, because nobody wants...
And it's like a bit of a phased approach also.
It's quite a challenge. Yes. It is quite a challenge to get a location for processing the derelicts and so on.
All right. Now, give me some guidelines, if you could explain it to us in terms of dealing with the waste material, especially from derricks. Give me some guidelines if you could explain that, the guidelines.
Okay, so if a garage operator, for example, is overwhelmed, right? Has run out of space for doing his garage operations, and he would like to have that addressed. We would facilitate in that they are required to take the items that they would like to dispose of to our facility for baling, right? Okay. So it would have to be clean material. We don't take contaminated stuff, right? For example, you remove all the refrigerants to start with from your AC units and all of that, your seating and upholstery and all of that, your oils from the vehicles and all of that, and you take just the shelters.
So that's all the authority will be accepting.
That is what we would be accepting.
Okay.
Right, in terms of the used oil, right, there's a used oil facility. I don't want to advertise for them, but there is a refinery now, refinery on island that we've partnered with for public-private partnership. So they're refining the oils. So the oil is now being made into oil again. Okay. And you can take it to that refinery for the making of, recycling into new oil. Okay. So the refrigerants, we do have a facility at the landfill for the extraction of the refrigerants also, but it's not in operation yet. It was just handed over to us by the ozone unit. Okay. So we're preparing ourselves in terms of having our officers trained to do that. But just plugging in one for the ozone unit, there are other units located around the island that would assist with that. So we don't want you to extract it off your own or just bust your systems and let things leak, right? But let us do things in the proper manner. Okay. That's in terms of our garages and the things that I think would come from them. Right. The small, items and so on, you can take to the landfill for safe disposal.
All right. Now, for the benefit of the listeners and the viewers out there, especially folks who's in the urban areas, so give us some of the waste management and urban cleaning contacts, just for the viewers and listeners out there.
Okay, in terms of our operations, right, Solid Waste Authority, we have our private waste contractors, right? Basically, we do for the householders, right, the regular garbage, but we also do special collection service for your white goods and bulky items, right? So this, we do not want you to add to the illegal dump sites and so on that are propping up from time to time around the country. I think that we're seeing less of this, given the fact that the distance to Perseverance is no longer very long, going up to Willis and all of that, but with the opening up of that new road, I think that we should see less of this and more cooperation in terms of people doing that which is right. So we want you to use our services, use our landfill services for the disposal of your waste that must be landfill. Those that can be recycled, you call us and we would advise you as to how your waste can be safely disposed of. As I mentioned, the topic here this morning is derelicts. We want you to work along with us. Call the derelict hotline. If you can't remember the derelict hotline, maybe call the traffic department of the Royal Grenada. They'll give you some guidance.
Give you guidelines.
Yeah, they have all the information there.
All right. Yeah. Now, Constable Paul, back to you a wee bit. Yes. The traffic department comes into this, in a holistic way for some reason or the other, and especially when it comes to, the road issues caused by derelict vehicles. Focusing on, the the ambulance, let's say the fire department ambulance, and other essential services that derelict vehicles may cause that obstruction to. What does the traffic department has to say about that in terms of an advice to folks who may just have these derelicts hanging around?
Yes, so I must start. It is very critical and important for all our emergency vehicles, whether it be ambulance, fire truck, police vehicle, or whatever emergency it is, to access or to get to where they have to attend to the needs of those emergency, and more so the fire trucks, because we know these are bigger. They are bigger than the regular vehicle because they have tons of water in it to put out fires and so forth. And we know most of the times fire starts in areas where it is difficult and impassable at times for a fire truck to get there. And adding to that, you have derelict vehicles packed along the roadways and access points for them to get to their destination. And it makes it very difficult to get there. And we want to appeal to those persons, please, because sometimes you see them persons have those vehicles on blocks. They have them in all sorts of manner, causing obstruction. And one of the things I didn't explain, obstruction. And this is a serious concern for the Royal Grenada Police Force in relation to especially the emergency vehicles, because saving a life is very important, especially even property as well, because you never know who is trapped in a house where a fire is. We never know who valuable properties and so forth, and the service vehicle cannot get to their destination because of an abandoned vehicle that is left in a derelict state. And therefore these are the things that from the solid waste management and the entire team that is what we're trying to eliminate, and so that these service vehicles, emergency vehicles, can get to their destination to the fastest time without any delays, so that they can put out fire, attend to the needs of emergency, and whatever emergency that we have at that particular time. And it's definitely important for us, because that the responsibility of the Royal Grenada Police Force is to preserve life and property. All right.
We due for a break. Let's take it. We're coming right back, folks, here on To The Point. We also will be entertaining your calls from listeners and viewers out there, 435-2041. We're coming right back after the break.
Affordable quality products.
Here's what customers had to say about Domus Windows and Doors.
The service was excellent with Domus.
Excellent customer service.
Just out of frustration, searching, and just came across you, and I think it was the best, one of my best find ever.
A good feature is that I didn't have to install any burglar proofing on the door because they have laminate glass.
The manufacturing time was on point.
Thanks for what you all are doing. I will continue to be a customer.
Visit Caribbean Shutters, Windows and Doors for Domus quality UPVC solutions.
Records at the traffic department shows that a total of 1,447 accidents were reported for the year 2012, which includes 3 road fatalities. 2,946 accidents were reported for the year 2022, which includes 8 road fatalities. This is a significant increase of 104%. This is alarming. When a family tragically loses a loved one, does it matter whether by means of a gun or a motor vehicle? To avoid accidents, drivers and pedestrians alike must exercise extreme caution when using the road.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio and GBN TV. Let's continue the conversation. We will be entertaining your calls. I see lots of folks are calling, but just give us maybe another 5 minutes. Let me just ask a question or two to Ms. Julian and Constable Paul before we entertain the phone calls. Probably in the final 15 minutes of the show, we probably will entertain the phone calls. But Julian, I want you if you can give some stats in terms of the amount of derelict vehicles that have already been collected during the whole process thus far.
To start it off, prior to the project coming on stream, an assessment was done of the quantities out there. And what we got from the RGPF based on the assessments and the Ministry of Health, there could be in excess of 10,000 derelict vehicles in public spaces and on private properties, right? And from December to now, when we started the tagging, the team started the tagging, we've processed approximately 250 vehicles. We're thankful to the MIT, that they have assisted in terms of helping in the procurement and the presentation of equipment to aid in the processing, the cutting up of the vehicles and so on. So that it is helping to speed up the process. As I mentioned, we have very little space at the current facility. So we've had to hire temporary staff under the project to aid in the cutting up and the safe scrapping of the vehicles so that we're making space and to send them for processing. So whereas we would have had like about 15, 20 vehicles collected in a 2 weeks period, for the month, 20 or so. Last month alone, we were able to collect 63 vehicles, right? And we want to keep up that momentum or even increase. So we're looking at new equipment, purchasing new equipment so that we'll be able to speed up the whole process. But critical is the whole issue of finding space at other locations in Grenada so that it costs a lot for the towing of the vehicles because we have to hire private tow trucks as well. We're working along with the police tow vehicle also. It costs a lot. So to transport, for example, 2 vehicles, you don't want to go beyond 3, especially if it is, vehicles in a particular state. And it is also risky in terms of if you have those that are falling apart and all of that. If you want to speed up the process, you don't want to be driving with speed from Grenville to the south of the island in order to transport, let's say, 10 vehicles per day. So it is critical. We are approaching a number of institutions that have space to see if we can establish a processing site on the eastern side of the island. Then we'll go north. So we want the people to exercise patience. We have quite a lot of calls coming from other locations.
So that's why I wanted to ask this also. But is that stats that you just gave, is it island-wide or just in let's say, between the
over 10,000? It involves Carriacou also.
It involves Carriacou also, okay.
Yeah.
And that's 63 that you're picking up per week?
Per month.
Per month, sorry.
Yes, for the month of April, we did 63 vehicles.
And that's island-wide, inclusive of Carriacou also?
No, we're not doing Carriacou yet.
Not yet?
No, we have no means of taking vehicles in. Right? But there are plans to address Carriacou shortly, yeah.
All right. Now, before we entertain the calls, can I see that the lines are going furiously in terms of folks wanting to chime in and ask questions or two. Removal, we've been noticing the removal of concrete bins on various areas around the island. What's the process of that and reasoning for that from the Solid Waste Management Authority point of view?
Okay, you mentioned the Rimlet project, right? It is a project, an OECS project to address the whole issue of reduction of marine litter, right? And very shortly, you're going to be seeing the color-coded bins in some of our towns. We're going to start with, it isn't because we're giving priority to St. George's. We're going to do St. George's and the eastern Grenville. Because we are working with our street cleaners, right, to service these units. Because you would observe that we have advertisements out now for tendering for Goa, Victoria, Setes, and Hillsborough and Carriacou. We cannot work with the street cleaners now, seeing that the contracts have expired.
Okay.
So once we have the new teams on, then we would work with the new or existing, depends on the. So we need to transition Grenada from the regular daily garbage collection service, right, and putting waste in communal bins to waste separation. And putting waste into these communal bins is not a progressive thing, right? There are a number of public health issues associated with them. We talk about issues, traffic and all of that. For example, just past the Catholic Church coming into town, just before Silver Sands, there's a bin and the waste is almost spilling into the main road, right? So they're presenting a number of problems, right? The intention of waste management is to address waste in a manner that it does not adversely affect your environment and public health. But when you have waste affecting public health, affecting traffic and all that, we need to address it. So some of the bins, they have become obsolete in that we've been able to reach communities with daily garbage collections, household collection service, house-to-house collection service. So where this is happening, we do the surveys, right, to determine their usefulness. If they're not serving a purpose, there is a majority vote to have it removed, we would remove them. Then we sensitize the public that they're going to be removed, and then we have them removed, and we continue to monitor what's happening there.
So the process with the remnants, bins and sorting bins. So no, these will be placed in particular areas. So households now would be able.
No, those for the towns.
Just for the towns.
Those for the towns.
So households
for litter and so on,
in communities per se, households would not no longer be allowed to put their garbage out like that in those. So
no, they're not required to use those, right? That's for litter prevention in the towns. These are for the towns only, right? The color-coded bins, these are for the towns. But we are thinking of if we need to cut down on the waste that we're sending to the landfill. I keep mentioning this, that our landfill is running out of space quickly. We have one cell that is going to last us 5 years, right? And we have no place for waste disposal after that. So we have to think in terms of transitioning us from this putting out waste commingled to waste separation. So once we have commissioned that final cell for waste disposal, you would hear information as to when to put out which type of waste, right? Because we want to turn our waste into a resource, right? The plastics and so on, the plastic bottles and so on, we put in measures in place to process the plastic bottles. We have been engaging a number of institutions, private entities who are interested in things, for example, tire processing. We have over 3,000 tires coming down the landfill per month, right? The plastics and so on, the metal, the same metal we're talking about, not just the vehicles, but the smaller metal, your corned beef tin, the sardine and on, the cans, right? The beer cans and so on. You have a lot of new beer types coming in and that kind of a thing, right? So we're importing things that have great potential for the generation of waste. We have to look at it. We have to do our studies, our waste characterization studies, to understand and to forecast what are these waste types that would be a challenge for us and address them appropriately. And one of them is, well, the critical thing is waste separation, and we have to go that way if we need to effectively address what's happening with waste management in Grenada.
All right. Let's entertain some calls. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Yeah, it's a very good program. But one thing I'm looking at is that she just talked about by Silver Sands and Grenada. Now you move two main garbage, one by Mosawi Shop and one over by Grenada's post office. Now the two in the bottom way. Where the people going to put the garbage? These things, before they do these things, they should take maybe about 6 months before they do this and send programs on the radio so people will get to know what to do. Because even in small communities, those little barrels and them still overflowing with garbage. Because they're moving these big garbage bins on them. That's why they overflow with them, because people don't know where to put it, so they put it where the garbage bin is.
All right, thank you, caller. Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution. Ms. Julian, you want to respond to the caller?
Just quickly, that main road from the south, from Point Celine to Belmont to Lagoon Road, that area is the only area in Grenada that is serviced every day, right? So you place your waste out in the same little area that you use your walkway or your driveway. You place your waste out 5 o'clock in the morning for collection service. It would be collected and taken away in time, right? The collection service starts on that route 5 o'clock, and if you put it out in time, we try to make sure that we do that collection service on that route before the rush hour starts, right? And we want people to understand this. Walk with us, right? Walk with the people who want to get to work on time in the morning or get to the airport because, they want them late for their flight or whatever it is. Walk with us. Use the collection service for that area. We don't have to tell you it's Monday and Thursday like where I live, but it is every day, and you put it out, including Sundays. Put it out in time for the collection service.
So we shouldn't be experiencing those spills.
No, we shouldn't be.
All right. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning. I applaud the government and the RGPF in particular for removal of derelict vehicles on the road. However, there's a bigger problem, not the derelict vehicles, but walking vehicles where private people use the public road for the private park all over Grenada. This is a serious problem, and I wish the government have the courts and the fortitude to allow and, refrain people from using the public road for the private park. In many cases, I see people have their driveway and they're still leaving the vehicle on the public road. If you could afford to buy a vehicle, you should afford to find a park rather than the public road. What is even annoying and disturbing is when I see the government seem to facilitate the process of people using the public road for the private park. There are many cases and instances where the road is expanded only to observe people using it for the private park. This is something that we have to look into and have to stop.
Thank you, Kola. Thank you for your contribution this morning. Constable Paul, I guess that question is probably directed to the RGPF.
Yes. It is definitely a concern in relation to what the caller explained, and we mentioned earlier obstruction, unwanted obstruction, especially for emergency vehicles getting to destination. But more so, we can remember on a daily basis we're seeing traffic congestion, and one obstruction, depending on how long that vehicle is, 1 minute of obstruction can cause a backup of traffic to a long backup of traffic that we don't want to see, especially in areas of built-up traffic, and then we don't want that to happen. But it is a concern for members of the Royal Grenada Police Force in dealing with those persons who park their vehicles along the roadside, because visibility, it restricts on visibility, it restricts on emergency vehicles getting to their destination, especially in narrow roads, and a lot of other concerns. But we want to appeal to persons. We beg enough. We tired come on radio and TV and tell persons to remove vehicle at will. We just want to let you know that persons will be dealt with accordingly, whether or not your vehicle will be towed once it's left in a position dangerous and so forth, and you will have to bear the cost. And the Royal Grenada Police Force will not be responsible for any damages incurred to your vehicle once it's not willfully or negligently done.
All right. That's something good to hear, because I think it's about time we see something done about that in terms of folks, especially obstruction. Because sometimes on mornings there are people who live close to the road and they will park, and especially when the rush hour,
very
and it becomes a serious problem.
Especially persons who get to work, and remember, business time lost is money. Persons getting to the airport, as Ms. Julian would have explained. We have to be reasonable and responsible as citizens and drivers along the road.
Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, VT, and morning to Ms. Julian and to the officer. I don't quite get his name, but good morning, sir. The caller before, I want to support his concern. The people parking in the road, using the public road. It caused a lot of problem in terms of near accident. It caused also conflict, people having to do extra effort to navigate. And I think we need to, as a nation, decide that we need to be lawful rather than lawless. And this is part of the ghettoization I've been talking about over the years, the creating people thinking they could do anything. If you could buy a vehicle, or before you buy a vehicle, think about where you're going to put it. Not buy it and then have a problem and, inconvenience so many of us. Anyways, just that way of supporting the last caller. My contribution, though, is to ask a few questions. In terms of the success of the program, and I have no doubt that there's some level of success, but when you say tag, you're saying the vehicle, and what is the kind of response you get from it? Is it a corporation? Are people willing to readily come forward, and what is the rate in terms of, is it people are more cooperative or less cooperative, and even when they have to pay the fine because of the time stipulation have elapsed, do they comply? I mean, and do the public assist in terms of identifying places, vehicles that need to be cleared? I mean, they want to know, on a general, we know that things are happening, but to what extent that we are experiencing success? Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution. Not sure which one of you, maybe Ms. Julian, you could probably chime in on that.
And given the fact that we did a lot of talking on that,
we spoke about it already.
I'll just give it a quick grade. Between 1 to 10 in terms of compliance, I would say about an 8 or 9. Right? In terms of acceptance, I would say a 10 for those who understand the importance of it. And what else? What was the other question? Yes, yeah. I think that the response has been good, generally.
Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Morning. This is a safety issue. There's a car in Pedmotor that is on its side, and it's held up by a piece of 2x4. When children come from school and they're playing in that area, once they bounce the 2x4, the piece of wood that is holding up the car is on edge, on the side of it. Once they hit that piece of 2x4, the car could cover these children and kill them. We got to pay attention to what's going on in Grenada. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution there. I guess Constable Paul will look into that.
Yes. Thank you very much for that information, caller. But also, we want you to give us a direct location, as Ms. Julian said, we have to remove such vehicle and to look at the dangers and so forth. More secure location, so you can contact the traffic department and give us further information as to the relation to where that vehicle is, so that we can look at it, whether it fits the description of a derelict vehicle, and so we can take the necessary steps and action to remove it based on the hazards that you've explained. Because not only dangers for children, we don't want it to be harboring for persons who are homeless and so forth. And once children playing in vehicles and such like that, and it starts rotting, the health implications that it have, and also for rodents and a lot of other hazards in your community. So right. Contact us and give us that information so that we can assist in dealing with that issue immediately.
All right, we may be able to entertain one more call, and then we come for, of course, just summarize on today's program. Good morning, caller. Welcome.
A pleasant good morning to the panel, and good morning, particular Constable Paul. I think that we need to have some stickers made that you can rove through Grenada, and folks who park in areas where they narrow down the road, especially for hampering the free movement of the fire trucks and other emergency vehicles and stuff, that a sticker can be placed on that vehicle, letting the owners know that if they fail to find an amicable parking place for their vehicle in the not too distant future, action will be taken against them. I think that would be able to send a message to them, because it seems to me you would tell them move now, and they would come back and park there again, and it continues. So it's like the offense continues because they don't take into consideration that what they are doing is wrong or it's an offense, to narrow down the public passageway.
Thank you, Gola. Thank you for your contribution this morning. Both Constable Paul and Ms. Julian, I know there any final statement you want to make before we take a wrap for today?
On the whole issue of the obstruction, as the gentleman just mentioned, I just want to plug in one for our garbage collection contractors, especially when they operate on early mornings. People who park where they live and they leave no space for the garbage truck results in no collection in some communities. So we want them to give consideration to our garbage collection teams. What happens also, if you have those vehicles poorly parked and you have, for example, ditches and so on the other side where they can pass, it can render our vehicles useless for the rest of the day, in that if they drop off the road and that hopper, that is the item to draw the waste in, gets kinked, it would not be able to move. It would jam, right? And then it have to be you have to take it back to its thing and have that. So it slows down garbage collection service significantly when this happens. So I just plug in, and also where we have those concrete receptacles and you park in front of them for the night. I don't know why you're parking it, because your vehicle going to be gathering that odor anyway. So avoid that. We see a lot of that happening in River Road, especially. You understand me? So, but in terms of the relic vehicle project, we want, especially for our citizens, to exercise support for this. And critical is that it's not just us, the stakeholders who are out there and doing the work and processing and all of that, but we want everyone, every citizen in this country to exercise ownership for this whole project. We all have quite a lot to benefit from this in terms of our aesthetics, how our country is, our environment, our health, safety, and all of that. So this is coming from us, from the Solid Waste Authority.
All right. Constable Paul, any final?
Yes. In relation to derelict, we have to look at it from a bigger picture. Because remember, these things make our country unsightly, it's unsafe, and we spoke about all the traffic hazards and so forth that those things poses. So from the traffic department, we want persons, especially for emergency vehicles, to remove, or we will remove it for you. So we have to do what we have to do to keep our country safe, to keep our country obstruction free from those things, and therefore our responsibility, along with the Solid Waste Management Authority, the ministry, we just want to appeal to all Grenadians that you comply and you assist us in eradicating those issues that pose this challenge, especially with derelict vehicles, and we can have a safer nation. And once we have a safer nation, we'll definitely have a safer people.
All right. Thank you once again. I want to say thank you, Ms. Julian, and of course, Constable Paul, for the information shared this morning. Certainly hope the viewing and listening audience will adhere to it and make the necessary adjustments. I want to thank both of you once again.
You're most welcome.
Hey, folks, that's where we take a wrap for today's program. Join me again. That will be on Monday of next week for another edition of To The Point. That's why I say goodbye. Be good to yourself and others. Have yourself a good one. Goodbye.